Good. I was about to say good evening, but people are probably going to be watching this in the morning, right? So it's evening now, but good morning.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that works.
Totally works.
I'm not going to judge myself for that. I'm going to be not self-critical for my not knowing what time of day or how to address the audience. In
Good.
the
See, you're learning already.
Yeah, good. It's been a week of a lot of growth for me. Yeah. Actually, it was hard to not be self-deprecatory when I was writing the day two email. I wanted to, like, the first paragraph that I wrote it like, I don't know why Leanne asked me to do this. I don't have anything intelligent to say on self-compassion. I was like, oh, wait, I have to go back and rewrite this. And then I wrote a whole thing about how I rewrote it. And then I deleted it all and started all over again. So yeah, this challenge definitely got me thinking a little bit. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I had the same problem, except reversed. Why did Anthony ask me to do this? How am I going to come up with stuff for 10 days? What the heck do I have to say? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's really funny. I have a friend who is, she's 8 years in our field. I work in nonprofit fundraising. And I hired her out of an alumni relations team into a fundraising team. And I was very successful in my role at that particular job because this woman was on my team. And she went off and became a director at a much bigger program and I think she's one of the best fundraisers I've ever met, period. She's an amazing storyteller. She's a great communicator. She's incredibly thoughtful, very strategic. I think the world of her. We are working on a conference that we are both going to be presenting at, and for some bizarre circumstances, I can't be there next week. And so now she's presenting alone. So we were kind of talking about how she was going to modify the presentation. And she was sort of reading through it, and she introduced herself talking for a paragraph about how she was not qualified to be talking on the subject. And it was really interesting because she's just a humble person. And it came out as like really self-deprecatory. And we ended up having we've known each other for 8 years now. So we've got, a little more than just a strictly professional relationship. We were able to have a conversation. And I really felt like I drew on some of the energy of this week. Like it really, I think in a very gentle way, without sort of beating her over the head for being self-critical, kind of encouraged her to think a little bit of it in, that term that's so stuck for me is there's no superhuman, no subhuman, just humans. And if we really believe that really includes us too. So I guess I'm off on this rant because we got a nice question from our friend Jessica in the discussion group today, which I'd love to hear a little bit of your response to, Leanne. Jessica said that she's noticing other people's self-criticism more acutely. I never know what to say when somebody badmouths themselves. I don't quite know the right English there. So I'm curious, Leanne, what advice do you have for Jessica there?
I first have to say, yay, thanks for noticing, Jessica. So get a round of applause. I think anybody this week who noticed anything gets a round of applause because, breaking habits, that's tricky to do. That's tricky to remember to do at any point. So the point about noticing what do we say to someone else, well, what do you say to yourself first? I think before I worry about what I would say or get someone else to shift is kind of what I had to do to write the articles. What do I do? Like really sit there and go, well, what do I do when I do this? Because I know a number of years ago, a couple friends pointed out to me that I would giggle and duck my head. Really annoys me when I see myself doing it on video. So I can't imagine how annoying that is to watch me in real life. And I would watch friends or people around me just do something that they're always making jokes, busting on themselves, or something where they're always attacking themselves or they don't believe in themselves. And for me, I had to think about, well, what am I doing to stop my annoying self-deprecating habit? Because that kind of ducking the head was my way of showing, I'm no threat. just laughing at your joke here. I'm innocent. And so I think with Jessica's question, the first thing I do is question, how do I make myself realize how important self-compassion is? Now, if it's someone close, Jessica, that you hear saying that, then you can think about your relationship and think about the context. And is that other person ready? Because I know a lot of people don't want to do a self-compassion thing. Like, they're not in the mood. They're tired enough. They have 100 things to do and they don't want to add another thing to their to-do list. So I think just looking at the timing and the context of that other person, and even just silently wishing them well, I think can sometimes be enough if they're not ready for our words. Keeping that focus on yourself, myself, however you want to put that sentence, is the number one practice in self-compassion. I think the second thing that comes up is when we start practicing self-compassion, we want everyone to start practicing self-compassion and in effect, deflect or distract from having to do it ourselves. Wow. It's really tricky how our minds work, isn't it? So I think a lot of times we can get distracted with noticing everybody else's lack of self-compassion, because then we're not going to notice it maybe as much in ourselves, because we're busy kind of thinking about other people, which is great, but for the purposes of this challenge, we're really trying to focus inward.
I really appreciate that. There are a couple of things you triggered for me, but I do remember when I first started a vegetarian diet, and I started looking down my nose on people. And then, oh my God, when I first became a vegan, it was obnoxious. I was like
one of those.
So preachy and it's just, it makes me cringe thinking back to it. But there was something happening for me that, like, because it was new and because I was proud of it, it was part of my identity, I started wanting to shape the people around me or do like a judging thing kind of attached to it. So I know that's a more extreme version of what you're talking about. And I also trust Jessica's instincts. She's a dear friend, so I know that she has deeply charitable instincts, and she's just a very empathetic person. So when she's seeing that criticism in others, she's not judging them for being critical of themselves. But yeah. You said something that really struck me that I think is such a valuable learning tool. That question if they're ready, right? Somebody said to me once that unsolicited advice is unsolicited criticism. And wow, that has really helped me be much more gentle about when I offer advice. And you're right, they've got to be ready. There's got to be a relationship. There's got to be trust there. When we criticize, when we put somebody on the defensive, they harden, they don't soften to it. And right. Particularly if you're being critical of somebody who's being critical of themselves,
right?
People like that, it's like pouring anxiety on top of more anxiety. Well, now it's like the being angry at myself for being angry.
Right.
I do that all the time. If I cursed at somebody for cutting me off in the car, then I was in a bad mood because I was angry at myself for cursing at a stranger, and
yep.
that's not a healthy cycle either.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Jessica, just knowing a little bit of her, didn't mean it like that. But I think some people who want to be helpful can end up coming across like that. Don't be mad for being mad. I think the second part of Jessica's, I want to find something around here to use as a hat, of Jessica's question brings up the fact that she's noticing. Like we said before, when you go shopping and you're trying to buy a car and you're thinking about maybe a Toyota or a Honda, suddenly the streets are full of Toyotas and Hondas all over, everywhere. So your brain starts to notice that, what you pay attention to gets noticed. And Jessica, that's a great segue into day 4. That'll be out, tomorrow morning, which would be today if you're watching this tomorrow, on Thursday.
Unless they're watching it over the weekend and they're catching up, in which case it was 2 days ago.
Yes. Well, I don't know where in the time-space continuum you are when you're watching this, so just go with day 4 Thursday. So on that day, I tried really hard to be concise. And there's me trying to be self-compassionate to myself who was trying to be concise when I wrote this the first time. Lizard brain is kind of hard to sum up. So watch the YouTube videos, the TED Talks. I think someone with a graphic arts flair and talent can explain it in a much more concise way. But it's the bear of the bush. When I tell this story, it always makes my husband chuckle. So I always think about that when I tell this story. Rick Hanson, Buddha's Brain, does a great job of explaining this. But in a nutshell, our ancestors, previous humans, when they went out and they, left the caves in the morning or wherever the heck they were living at the time, they had to decide what actions they were going to take to survive that day. So if they're looking out, if our ancestors are looking out in the distance and she sees a dark shape, is it a bear or a bush? Mm-hmm. So if she walks towards that shape, if it's a bear, she gets eaten. If it's a bush, she eats for the day, which, one of those endings has a permanent consequence. Mm-hmm. The other one, you just go hungry. So the ancestors who lived on to reproduce probably were a little bit more paranoid than the go-lucky, it's probably not a bear, it's probably a bush, I'm going to go out there and eat. And then they get eaten. Mm-hmm. So the more cautious, timid, we're going to make sure this is safe, live to pass on, which is great when you're trying to fight off bears. But, like Anthony said, when you're driving in traffic and someone cuts you off, in all reality, if there was no accident, there was some degree of safety, our systems are already primed to react. When we're at work and someone just looks at us funny, we're primed to react. What did I do? What's wrong with them? What can I do? I have to figure this out. Yeah. So we're trying to manage a 20,000-year-old brain in modern day society and wondering why sometimes it doesn't go really well. So day 4 kind of does talk about what Jessica's seeing is she's now seeing what she's been primed to see. You can either pay attention to the negative or pay attention to the positive. And again, you're not Pollyanna, you're not denying the negative or the positive, but a more equal balance really is more accurate.
Awesome. I love it. I could talk to you all night, but I have to go back to whatever I was working on. This was awesome, Leanne. I'm loving the challenge. We've been getting a lot of wonderful feedback, and everybody certainly appreciates what you're doing. So thanks for taking a little time to chat with us too. And we've got a cool, actually, do you want to just tease the conversation we're going to have on Wednesday of next week? Are we doing that as a live? We're doing that. We're recording that, and we'll publish it the next day. Is that what we're going to do?
We're going to do something. But next week, you remember the book that I showed on Monday with the CFT Made Simple? The author of that, Dr. Russell Koltz, is gracing us with his presence. He's actually a really funny guy. I've attended a couple of his classes. His TED Talk video should be out on that same day or the day before, depends how well I can do math. And he'll be joining us for a session to talk and answer questions. Really, really enjoy. I mean, he literally wrote the book on compassion-focused therapy made simple. So, I mean, who else would you want to ask questions of? So I really want to encourage you guys to leave questions or your experiences even in the Facebook group. Tell us how you're doing. Tell us what you're coming across. How's it going for you during the day? Would love to interact with you in the group.
Awesome. Cool. Leanne, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.